I grew up in an area of the world where the dream for a female was to be a stay-at-home mom. I have to take a step because this inaction is creating bigger stories that are making it harder to move. This is what I want. I'm willing to do the work. Let's make it happen. There are 1,000 points to turn around, and sometimes there's only one to continue.
Welcome to the Masters of Business podcast with Daniel Beer.
Masters of Business, I have a treat for you. Today's guest, Jenn Drummond, world record holding mountaineer. We're going to jump into that. Financial advisor, built an amazing practice, and get this, exited her own business while retaining 100% ownership. And so we're going to talk about that because so often we confuse being a business owner versus an operator, being in the business. And so she's mastered that. I want to dive into it. Jenn, welcome to the podcast. As a fellow mountaineer, nowhere near your level, I am excited to have this conversation because I think there's going to be just a ton of insights in different areas that are going to impact me personally, let alone the audience, of course, as well. So welcome.
Well, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Well, we're going to get to the exit while retaining ownership, but you built a fairly large financial advisement practice, and then you become a mountaineer. Or how long were you a mountaineer for? Because the first thing on my mind, I mean, by the way, guys, she's climbed Everest, she's climbed K2, she's the world record you have is you've climbed the second highest peak on every continent on the planet. First woman to do so. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, good memory. Nice.
So a total bad. And by the way, if you don't know this, the second highest peak on every continent is far harder than the first. For example, a lot of people know that K2 is a lot harder than Everest. That's true on every continent. And so just a wild accomplishment. It takes a lot of time. Some of these are like month-long climbs. So how did that affect your business in being able to be away for so long? Because one of the things, Jenn, that our listeners struggle through, just like any business owner, is I get into business for freedom, but then I end up with less freedom than I've ever had because I'm absolutely trapped in the business. And you seem to have solved for that. So I'd love to start there.
Yeah, no, definitely. Right? Like I went on my own because I wasn't working for somebody else. I wanted to keep that money. So I got into finance and worked for a company for a while, figured out the mousetrap, started my own. I had this idea of what it was going to look like too, right? I was going to have one of those offices where you could see your name on the building and, all the fun things, reception, all that. So I start building all that because I had a successful practice independently underneath this firm. And while I was in the process of picking out wall colors and carpets and all that kind of stuff, I wasn't calling people or checking on them or building my practice any bigger. I was just coasting on what I had. Not a good thing to do. And I remember like a few months down the road, I got this bill from the color copy machine. I'm like, oh, what are we printing in color? I mean, this is back when you had to pick like maps to go to people's offices, right? And everybody's printing color everywhere and you had to pay for ink at the, I don't know, whatever. Anyways, shows how old I am. And I'm like, no more color printing. Like, we're done. And it was one of those things I'm like, oh my gosh, I was so focused on what it looked like that I stopped paying attention to what brought in revenue. And the reality is like, doesn't matter what it looks like if it's not sustainable. So you have to focus on the revenue at all times. And the crazy thing is like my idea of what it was going to be ended up not being what it was going to be. So I had a client that was the CEO of a credit union. And she had come in for a review meeting. And in our review meeting, she was like, hey, we're going to start offering investment services to our membership. I'm like, oh, cool. Like, who are you going to do that with? And she's like, well, we're interviewing people right now. I'm like, well, can I interview? And she's like, I didn't even think of you as somebody that could do this for us. But yes, of course, you manage my money. Happy to have you interview. Which was eye-opening, right? Like I did investment services for her for years, and you're telling me like you didn't even think of me as like somebody that could help your business with this, but thank you.
Right. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. Like I think we play a bigger role in people's lives, whatever role we have. And unless we're reminding them like consistently of like who we are and what we do, they like put you into a little folder of like, this is who I talk to about this. And they don't think about you outside of that. So it's our job to teach people like all the things we do all the time.
There's a
Right?
nugget for you.
Yeah, take that one. So I go and I interview with her board of directors, and it's not who you know, it's who knows you. And I got the job. And I'm like, okay, awesome. So I get this job and I'm like, this is a cash cow because before my entire career was cold calling, right? Pick up the phone book, dial, smile, and dial. Now it's like if I win these tellers over, these tellers can be like sending people to me and we can help them with their investments. It was working like a charm. And the second in charge of this credit union used to own a marketing company, and that marketed to credit unions. And the unique thing about credit unions is why I think we talk about like niching a market down so much, is that you have to live, work, or worship to be a member of that credit union. You know, so like if I take the state of Michigan where I grew up, and I grew up in this little town called Holland, Michigan, and Detroit's on the other side of Michigan, and Traverse City's up top Michigan. If I live in Holland, I might not belong to the credit union in Detroit because I don't live, work, or worship there. I'm not going to belong to the credit union in Traverse City. Same reason. Don't live, work, or worship there. So these credit unions get together for a conference every year and share ideas. Hey, we're all in Michigan. Here's what's working for my membership. What's working for yours? Let's figure this out. So this guy is like, Jen, every credit union is interested in getting into investments now that the law changed. You should set up a booth at the next expo and offer this service. I'm like, okay, how do I do that? So he's like giving me all this advice. And he's like, here's the thing. You set up the relationship with this credit union with your brand tied to it. Credit unions are small. They don't want a third party to market through their membership. They want to build their brand. If you're willing to white label this, so the credit union can call it themselves, like Auto Body Credit Union or Gerber Investment Services or, Kellogg Investment Management, you let them name the program, they're going to like you, and that's going to set you apart from all your competitors because it allows them to build their brand. I'm like, I don't care if my name's on anything. This has been the best thing that's ever happened to me. So I set up this booth at this expo. I have the one credit union who adores me because we're bringing in revenue right away because their employees are fully engaged in supporting the program. And it's this beautiful relationship. And I'm like, my goal is like, I'm going to get 5 credit unions. We're going to build this out and it's going to be great. 13 credit unions from
Wow.
this like one expo that I literally like built the expo like build out 2 weeks before on like Amazon. Okay. Like nothing fancy at all. It was awesome. And then I realized like I repeated this contract that only had a few months of like bandwidth underneath it 13 times. Would have been nicer to have a little more experience so we would know how to write that better. But hey, you live and learn. And so the funny thing is like my original idea of my business, like corner office, name on the side, blah, 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 couldn't have been farther from the truth. My office is in the credit union. So they pay for my office space. We do a revenue sharing agreement on the assets under management and the program's after them. So no one even knows who Jenn Drummond is, right? Like it's a white label program. So they get to title it. And that's how I built my business. We manage over $1 billion in assets.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So you ended up with over $1 billion in assets under management, and you have some partnership agreement with the credit unions where they revenue share with you. That's amazing. And the reality is what would most people have done if faced with the opportunity for that expo? Had you ever sold at an expo before?
Never been. I literally he's like, go to an expo. I'm like, I don't think I've ever been to an expo.
Yeah.
So like that next weekend, I'm like looking up expos everywhere. So the expo I went to was a boat show. So I'm like walking around this boat show and I'm like, oh, randomly there was a soap company at the boat show that white labeled the soap so that like if you got your boat fixed at like some marina and you needed to like have soap to clean your boat off, it would have that marina's name on it. And so the marina would I'm like, oh, that's what I'm doing. I'm like, that soap company. So like, I was like taking notes from them on what to do. And I didn't have like I mean, I was so clueless.
And your booth had to have been really far from perfect.
Oh my God, it was like a card table.
And so most people simply would have taken zero action because they needed to wait to get the perfect booth. And it's this principle that we revisit over and over again, where your imperfect, half done, barely standing booth so far outperforms the booth that the other people with a similar opportunity just never had, didn't have at all.
Right.
Because it's this thing that I really, really hope people get, because it's, I think, one of the things that could really move your life is the day you understand that making things perfect, making things exactly right is a really great mask for procrastination, for fear, for inaction. Because it's a way of saying, hey, I'm going to do nothing. I'm actually going to stay home, eat pizza, and sit on the sofa. But instead of having to say that, you disguise it behind a high standard, right, of perfection. And, well, hold on, it's not at that standard, so I'm actually just going to be home picking my nose.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely. And yeah, I mean, truly, your energy sells whatever you're doing. So for me, like, I'm trying to land like huge contracts for us, right? And so in the parking lot, before I'm going into the expo, I'm listening to Busta Rhymes. Like, I'm like jamming to like rap music, and I'm like, okay, like, this is it. Like, anything less than the best is a felony, a little bit of Vanilla Ice. And like, that's what I needed, because that's the energy I needed to bring.
Yeah.
That when I showed up at the booth, like, I was like, hi, girl, let's go. This is what you want.
So let's go to this space here. Energy, the way you show up. I don't typically ask people on this podcast this question, but knowing that you've climbed Everest and all of its sister mountains, right? Like, knowing that we're going there in the conversation, that takes a certain degree of energy, a certain degree of just, being wired differently than other people. So, and you're doing this before your sales meeting. How does your day, do you have something around this, like the morning routine, or that's not really your thing?
I'm a night girl routine. So I want
What's your energy routine? Like, how do you
so
calibrate
the
yourself
day
every day?
before, like, I'm a nerd. I have my outfit laid out. I go through my calendar, and I'm thinking, okay, here's what I'm doing. Here's how I want to show up. Here's the outcome I want to have. So that when I go to bed, I believe that the universe is like using my whole,
Like organizing all of that.
yeah, that's like, this is kind of my prayer for tomorrow, is like, here's what I'm doing, here's what I'm wearing, here's how I want to show up, so that when the next day happens, it's like, I already did it once. I dress rehearsed it the night before, and so now I just go and execute.
And you just called it prayer.
Yeah, a little bit.
What is prayer? Because I
Prayer?
think some people are like, oh, no, that's not me, I don't pray. Well, you either probably do and don't realize it, or you should, and you really wouldn't be against it if you understood it.
Yeah. To me, prayer is like tapping into an energetic source that's bigger than me, and like putting into the universe, this is what I want. This is how I'm willing to show up. I'm willing to do the work, and like, let's make it happen. So it's like manifesting with action.
Awesome. Really, really glad I asked you that. So essentially what so your thing is, the night before, you essentially are setting your intention for the next day. You're like, I think it was Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant, or I don't forget who, one of those guys who would envision their free throws over and over. And so obviously they did their 10,000 reps, right? But they also had 10, 20, untold thousands of reps additionally that would just happen in their mind, visualizing. So you're doing that the night before. That's your thing in setting up your day. So take us now to, like, you've set up this amazing business that you've done, like, through with this awesome story that you just told us. And most of us business owners know that if we leave the office for a month, things are not going to go too well. Like,
Yeah.
for most of us, things break down, yet you take on the number one thing that's going to absolutely not only put you out of the office, but put you out of cell phone reach, put you like literally like in non-existence, which is to go climb the highest peaks in the world. So how did that impact your business?
Yeah.
And if it did or didn't, like, I'd definitely like to know how you set it up to retain its success.
Yeah, so there's a gap there, right? So what got me out of the business was I grew up in an area of the world where the dream for a female was to be a stay-at-home mom.
What area is that?
Holland, Michigan. Right? So cute little town. Everybody wants to be a stay-at-home mom. Like, that's the dream. And I had a stay-at-home mom. So I was like, okay, cool. This is what we do. And so I want to start having kids. And I'm like, well, I need to be a stay-at-home mom. I can't be a stay-at-home mom and run this company. Like, how am I going to do this? So luckily, kids come one at a time, right? So
And for yours, they come one, and then the next, and the
next,
next, and the
the next.
next, and the...
Yeah.
Tell them how many
Which,
kids
like,
you have.
okay, so I have 7 kids. Woo! My son, when he was in kindergarten, he goes to school and he's like, my mom says babies are blessings. And the teacher's like, yeah, they are. He's like, do you think we're going to get a blessing every year?
And by the way, you know what she just told you guys? I'm sorry, but what she just told you is put your excuse back in your pocket, throw it somewhere. Like, running a business, mom of 7, climbing the highest peaks in the world.
Yes. But so there's this gap. Right?
Like, how'd you build this person? But go ahead.
Yeah. So there's this gap. So, like, I have my first kid.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm like, oh, my goodness, this is amazing. Like, there's no way I'm going to go get, deal with so-and-so client. I'm going to take care of this baby. And then I have my second. So, like, I start pulling back. Like, what are responsibilities I don't need to do so I could be home with Junior? Then I have my second kid. I'm like, okay, what are more responsibilities I don't need to do? So as the kids came, I backed myself out more and more.
Well, give us an example of that. That sounds simple, but there might be a little, like, give us an example of that.
It's hard, right? Like, I mean, because I'm like a fanatic and I like things, I am the lady at my house who has a binder that shows people that my definition of a clean refrigerator has a picture. Because so many people were helping at my house because I had so many kids that they'd be like, the refrigerator's clean. I'm like, oh no, that refrigerator is not clean. This is what a clean fridge looks like, and that doesn't look like that. And so, like, I had pictures of how things were supposed to look. Like, I'm that much of a pain in the butt. So at the business, I was like, okay, listen, what can I let go of first? And so what I could let go of first was, like, the little things that didn't mean much, right? Like, I mean, meant much, but not a ton. Like, bringing in wholesalers to learn about new products and market trends. I'm going to let somebody else be responsible for that. I'm going to let somebody else be responsible for the technology that we use to stay on top of everything and aggregate all their accounts and things like that. I'm going to let somebody else start meeting with my clients, and I'm only going to meet with the credit union CEOs. I'm not going to meet with day-to-day clients anymore. That took me 4 years to work myself out of all the clients because they came on because of me. So I'd have to go into a meeting and do the meeting with the new advisor and be like, here's your new advisor. I'm going to be behind the scenes. And so then I would call them and not meet with them in person throughout the year to say, like, hey, I'm still here. I hear you're having a great time with Jim. He really adores you. Like, let's stay in touch. And so then eventually that stopped to even less, right? And so that took a while. The last thing I handed off, which I'm still not awesome at, was the finances, right? Because I'm a number girl. I'm in finance. Like, I like to know, like, what's generating revenue, what's not, like, what is our product mix? Where are people winning? Where are they losing? Like, all that kind of stuff. I like that stuff. And I was like, I have to get rid of this because this is time consuming. I'm not there. I'm not in the day to day, blah, 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 blah. And so I finally handed that off. And then I started, like, then I was like the stay-at-home mom full time. And I'll be honest with you, my kids all of a sudden all went to school. So then I'm home by myself and I'm like, what do I do? Like, I don't want to be tied up where I'm stuck in a day-to-day job. I don't know how to do something half throttle. So I'm not going to be good there. They're doing a great job. If I come back, I'm going to mess up the pot and stir things up that don't need to be stirred up. And so I can't really go work at my company because that's doing well and that'd be showing them that they're not. But I can't really take a new job somewhere. That's weird. So I got into mountaineering. I'm like, I'm going to climb some mountains and we'll see what happens.
How long ago did you get into mountaineering?
Okay. I kind of fully removed myself from the business in 2016. 2017 and 2018, I was in Park City. 2018, I got into a car crash. And that car crash was like, girl, don't put your life on hold. It's moving. You do things you want to do now, or you won't be here to do them. 2019 was the year of like, why was I saved? Why didn't I die in that car wreck? What am I going to do with my life? And then I was going to climb a mountain for my 40th birthday, which was happening in 2020. And so I was training for this mountain named Ama de Blanc.
Oh my gosh, it's one of my dream mountains that I want to climb.
It's
This was
my
your
favorite
first mountain?
That's my first mountain.
I mean, is it? Can I call you crazy?
I'm a little crazy.
Yeah,
You don't know, you don't know. I'm like, well, let's just try a real one, right? And I'm like,
that is
and I
so
convinced
awesome.
everybody, I'm like, listen, I used to be an athlete. It's my
Who'd you
birthday.
climb that
Like,
with? What
uh,
guiding company?
Garrett Madison.
Garrett Madison. Happy?
Oh my God, he's fabulous. Yes. Madison Mountaineering. Highly recommend them. So I climb, so I'm like convincing them, like, listen, I'm a good climb. I'm athletic. We're good. It's my birthday. Don't turn me down. They're like, for sure. Well, then if you remember 2020, I'm not going anywhere to climb a mountain. I'm dealing with COVID and I'm homeschooling 7 children all of a sudden because the school's all shut down. And so one of my kids is struggling with his math homework. I'm like, listen, buddy, we do hard things. And this little guy goes, Mom, if we do hard things, why are you climbing a mountain called I'm a Dumb Blonde instead of a real mountain like Mount Everest? And I'm like, Ama de Blanc, honey, not I'm a Dumb Blonde. But thank you.
Alma de Blanc is more technical. I mean, guys, Alma de Blanc, AMA, de Blanc, DABLAM. Go Google it. Google Alma de Blanc Camp 2 and take a look and just take a look at what Jenn did. It's on. Did you love it? How would you rank it against others
Still my
you've done?
favorite climb. My favorite
I
climb.
really want to do that.
You should. It is the best climb ever.
That's awesome. Okay.
Yes.
So
So I climb Ama, and then I climb Everest because my son challenged me to, and I'm like, I'll climb Everest and show you we can climb our Everest no matter what that Everest is. And then my coach gives me this book about becoming an uphill athlete. And in the front of this book is a story of a lady who got a Guinness World Record. And I'm like half joking with a call on it with him. And I'm like, if I got a Guinness World Record, I'd actually be the coolest mom ever. He's like, well, then let's get you one. I'm like, okay, cool, but I'm not growing pumpkins or speed eating hot dogs, so whatever. He's like, no, I'll think of a mountaineering one, don't worry. And then he came back with the 7-second summit idea because he's like 7 continents, 7 mountains, 7 children. It's a jackpot. I'm like, it is, but I still haven't slept in a tent, so let's figure out these details.
So you've not slept in a tent, but decided you're doing that.
I did. I was like, and that's kind of my personality. Like, if I'm going to do something, like, I can suffer. I birthed 7 children. Like, I can suffer. But, yeah, it was awesome.
How many did you ever do one with no epidural, no anesthesia, no nothing?
Not that crazy.
All right. So we have a limit. All right. Awesome.
Yes.
So, okay. So where are we here? You decide you're going to go climb all this. You have your business running.
Yeah.
And you stepped out of the business. Oh, so you'd already stepped out. You said 2016.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you
So
started
I didn't
climbing
climb
in 2020.
until 2020, right? So I'm quite a ways out.
Well, you're making me feel real bad because I started climbing in 2020. But all I have under my belt's like two summits of Mount Baker, one of Mount Rainier, been to Ecuador, climbed, a couple mountains down there, Lini Sur, and got in Cayambe, which we didn't complete. And then I've been to Bolivia. I've been to 20,000 feet. But point being, you're light years ahead. I mean, that's a lot of climbing in a short period of time, especially with the climbing windows that each of these mountains have. And some of these are 30-day climbs. So you went all in.
I don't do 30 days for any of them. So I hacked the system.
All right. Let's talk about that.
So like anybody who's listening, this is a business hack, a personal hack, a athletic hack. Like, I couldn't be gone for 30 days. I have 7 kids. Like, I'm the primary caregiver. And so I went to my doctor in town and I'm like, hey, I need to figure out how to acclimate faster because that's the only thing that holds these expeditions up. And so I need to, like, what's my option? Like, is there, like, do I come off? I mean, I literally this is how crazy I am. I'm like, so do I come off a mountain and we get my blood out so we can put it back in there when I need to go back to another mountain? He's like, I'm not joking you with your own blood. I'm like, I'm in for it. Like, I'm here. Like, it's good. He's like, no. He's like,
Wait. You're in your mind is that you would have like acclimated blood that you would store in the mountains.
No, I would bring it home. We'd save it at the blood bank locally, and then when I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna go climb another mountain,"
And you'd
I'd go, "Oh,
infuse
put it."
yourself with your acclimated blood
Yeah,
and then
totally,
travel.
totally.
Amazing. That is okay.
That's why I went to the doctor. I was gonna pitch him this strategy so that once I got acclimated on one mountain, I could just keep reusing that blood and be ready to go, right? And he's like, "Yeah, we're not doing
Yeah,
that."
no. Well,
No, but that was
you could have just called me. I would have told you no. You didn't even have to spend the money on the doctor. Like,
I know he thought it was entertaining. But he did introduce me to the company called Hypoxico. And so Hypoxico gives you these tents that you can sleep in or train in that allow you to acclimate at home. And some people it works for and some people it doesn't. And I'm a person it works for. And the reason why we know is one, I've climbed all these mountains a lot faster than normal. But the first day I get this tent, I'm like, okay, awesome. I plug it in. I'm gonna sleep in it. And I turn it up and it gives you these rankings of 6,000, 10,000. It tells you what footage it's gonna go to.
right.
Well, I live at 6,000 feet and I feel fine and I can get up to 10,000 feet any day on a hike. So I'm going to start this bad boy at 10,000 because that's where I'm at. So I start this thing at 10,000. I have a headache. I can't sleep. I have to pee every hour.
Yeah.
This is garbage. And so then I call the place the next day. I'm like, you guys sent me a broken machine. I can't believe this. And they're like, well, what'd you run it at last night? Well, 10,000. They're like, yeah, but you already live at 6,500. So you slept at 16,500 last night. No wonder why you felt like
Oh, it's
garbage.
10,000 more.
It's 10,000 more.
Whoa, got it. I have
Yeah.
slept at, that's actually the high point I've slept at, 16.
Yeah.
It sucks.
Yeah.
Like it
Especially
really
if you go from 0 to or
sucks.
6,500 to 16. It really
Yes.
sucks.
It is not a fun thing to do.
No.
So, all right, that is hilarious. And actually a great tip because the day I get into one of those, I had no idea that it's plus, even though I'm at sea level, so it's kind of irrelevant for me.
But it's plus.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
There you go.
So you set off on this thing, you climb. So what would you say you learned about yourself the most? I mean, it sounds to me like you already knew you were tough. You already knew you could do whatever you decided you were going to do. You already thought of yourself as I'm all in or out. But I know without even having to ask you that you learned things about yourself on this journey of climbing these harrowing peaks. What comes to mind that you really discovered and that you'll take with you into your future business endeavors, into really all that you do? What's stayed with you?
Yeah, there's a lot here. So I'll start picking apart things. Number one, big mountains take big teams. So if you're building a
Good.
business, if you're trying to do anything that's big, you're not doing it alone, right? So when I thought of Everest, Everest was such an easy climb for me because I'm so used to doing everything, right? And on Everest, they have somebody making your food, they have somebody moving the tents, they have somebody moving the oxygen tanks, they have somebody telling you the weather reports. They have everybody doing everything. And I literally had to wake up and walk. And I was like, wow, look how far I can go when the only thing I need to do is walk. When I get home, what do I need to do at my house? So the only thing I need to do is love my kids.
That's huge. That's life-changing.
Huge.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. That was a huge lesson to me. And I'm always when I'm tired or cranky or grouchy, I'm like, what am I doing? And who can I add to my team so that I can get up this mountain and enjoy myself?
So you really came into, I mean, if we go back to you'd exited your business 2016 and you'd replaced yourself through who can do this, who can do that, who can do that. But it sounds like it wasn't until you were there that it really got to a far deeper place for you of who can I surround myself with, even to the point of where what did you say? Where all I have to do is love my kids.
Right.
And for someone who's like doing as much as you're doing, that is maybe the only right question for your kids to be able to remember, like, mom was there. Because you're probably not there physically all the time.
Right.
And it might even be impossible. You can't be with 7 of them all the time. They're at different stages of life. Some are in, right, from they're just in different grade schools and college to high school to elementary, like wherever they're at. So if you have that level of presence, however, it's a real way of multiplying yourself.
Yeah,
Is that what you
definitely.
found?
100%. 100%. And when you love your life, like I love my life. Like I'll be honest, like I live a pretty good life. Like when you love your life, like think of the energy you bring into your house,
Yeah.
right? Like my kids love it that I'm happy and excited and ecstatic, and they think it's funny when I'm grouchy because I have to eat healthy and they get to eat ice cream, or I have to go for training, or whatever. Like I pout. Like, I did not want to do this today. And they're like, well, we don't want to do our homework and you make us, so you're going to go do that. Right? Like, we're doing this life in
It sounds like
parallel.
your kids are like unbelievable accountability partners.
Oh my
You've
God.
mentioned a few things around that.
Yeah. No, note to self. If you're going to climb 7 mountains and you have 7 children, you're climbing 7 mountains, because those 7 kids are going to pick a mountain that relates to them. And then they take it personal if you don't get to the top. So yes, they're my big time accountability partners.
That's awesome. Where's that come from?
I just know me, right?
Well,
Like,
for them, like how'd that become them? How'd you get how'd you move that into your kids?
yeah, because I liked it. Like, I would thank them. I'm like, thank you for making me show up the way I want to show up.
Mm.
Thank you for reminding me of who I am. Thank you, because like we all go through hard times and rough moments. And when you acknowledge somebody that mirrors back something to you that you want to be, let them know, because then they'll keep doing it.
But I mean, what you're hitting on right now is huge in that I think we all get the opportunity to have that person in our lives or those people in our lives, but most won't react the way you did. Most will react with like, whoa, like that's not your place, or standoffish, or hey, like you're hurting my feelings, or that was hurtful, right? Like and then what we're doing is we're training people not to show up for us that way while you just leaned in and thanked them. I was in the room with you where I witnessed one of the greatest lessons in this space, this conversation that we're having. Obviously, without naming names, we're in a group discussion. Somebody and by the way, this room that we're in, everybody's like, right, business wise at like Jen's level, and
No.
even
No, no,
beyond.
no.
Like it's just like
Jen, like, doesn't know how she got in that room, but she's grateful she was
that's how
there.
I
So let's
felt
be
the whole
real.
time. I
Yes.
mean, you're talking names that you'd very easily recognize. Let's just put it that way, that are top of industry in the 50, 100, 200, 500 billion dollars, and whether it be revenues, assets, etc. So where I'm at a table, and there's a discussion going on where someone's describing an issue in their personal life, and somebody else and keep in mind, there's a powerful person describing this, and somebody else at the table says, well, it's because you don't love yourself. And I was like, oh shit, like this, okay. And the person says, what do you mean? I do. No, I care about myself. I love myself. And they put up a little bit of a fight, a little bit of a defense. And then this other person says, no, you don't, because look at your body. And I was like, whoa, like this shit's going to come to blows. Like there's about to be a fight.
Yeah.
Like, let me back up here. I don't want to be collateral damage. Like, I don't want to take a punch by accident. You know what I've witnessed next? Person who received that message says, huh, that's something to think about. You could be right. I was like, whoa. It was beautiful. And by the way, this person cares about themselves. They love themselves. But at like, you just recognized that this person was giving him a message in total accountability, which is the thing we show up to that a thing like that for.
Totally.
We want that out of our friends. We want that out of our family. But when we get it, we reject it. And that's not what I witnessed there.
Not at all.
It's no wonder that these people are at the top of the game and what they do. I mean, like, again, you'd recognize it. And by the way, this person looks good by most standards, but not at his very, very, very highest standard. And so it's just a beautiful lesson, Jen. Like, not only the way he received it, but how about the guts on the person to say it and know that it was going to be okay and that it would be received. I mean, so it took a massive amount of trust from both ends.
Yeah. Right.
And I think we all can have these relationships with people. We all are presented with that person or those people, but most of us push back on them and reject it. And then we lose that. And then we don't have that, right? Then we kind of end up on an island and no one tells us the truth.
Right. Right. Yeah, well, kids tell you the truth all the time. And then that reminds you of how significant truth is, because truth builds trust.
It's really, really awesome. Okay, so they become your accountability partners and they set you off. And so we're back here at what you learned about yourself. So number one is you learned big mountains take big teams. Really good. What else comes to mind? What else did these? What else have the mountains
In
brought you?
sales, you hear that ABC, always be closing.
Sure.
Like, you are ABCing yourself up that entire mountain.
Okay.
Because there are 1,000 points to turn around, and there's 1,000 justifiable reasons to turn around. And sometimes there's only one to continue. And that one you need to blow oxygen into so that flame is big enough for you to take that step. And so I guess on every mountain, everybody's like, did you ever want to turn around? Did I ever want to turn around?
Yeah.
Like, I'm like out there freezing my butt off, peeing in like a hole and paying for it. Of course I wanted to turn around.
What was the hardest? What was the most painful process for you? Was it the cold? Was it your muscles? Was it the hunger? What became most painful physically for you?
So I like to be good at things. And when I'm not good at things, and like everybody knowing I'm not good at something, because there's no hiding it up there. So when we were doing the ladders on Everest, like those were real. I trained on them on a pool back here, right? Like I was fine. And then when I get over there and the ladder is bracing this like huge crevasse that has a 2,000-foot drop that you can't see the bottom of. And when you step on it, part of the ladder goes up in the air on the other side and they're tied together with rope, right? I'm like, no, it's OSHA approving this. Like, I need to go home. Like I was scared and I couldn't talk myself out of it for a while.
You sort of froze up then on one side of it?
I froze up and I'm like, I don't freeze up. This isn't who I am. Like, this is garbage. So then I'm having like a fight with myself, which is making it even worse. And everybody's like, they're watching. And then I'm like, just like you want to get mad at everybody else when really it's only you that's like being witnessed by everybody else. And so like, I knew I was going to have a hard time on the mountain at some point. I just didn't know when it was going to be. So I built this like toolkit, right? Because I'm like, offense is the best defense. So I had written myself a letter. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to pull out this letter and I'm going to be fine. So I'm reading this letter. I was like, I wrote that letter in my kitchen. Like I had no effing clue this is what this was going to be. That doesn't count. And then like I pull out a picture of my kids and I'm like, my kids are watching. I'm like, yeah, my kids will think I'm crazy. I can go home. They're fine with it. Like, I mean, I literally like had all these things that were supposed to help me that were not helping. And so finally I realized I'm like, I have to take a step because this inaction is creating bigger stories that are making it harder to move. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to start taking steps and I'm going to cry and I'm embarrassed and I'm just calling it out. So you guys need to help me. And like the whole, like I can almost tear up about this, but like the whole crew on the other side of this like ladder was like, step, 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 step. And they were cheering me on. And I was like, just went with it. And I did it. And I cried and I swallowed my heart like 5 times because I thought I was going to fall. And I got to the other side and like we celebrated like it was the 4th of July and Christmas on the same day.
That is so cool.
And it was the coolest thing ever. And it's like when we are going through hard times, we think we want to be alone and we think we don't want other people to know. And I'm telling you, like, that experience taught me that I couldn't be farther from the truth. Like, when we are going through these yucky, muddy, ugly, hard moments, those are when you need people to remind you, just take a step and to cheer through those moments. So when you get to the other side, you celebrate. And here's what happens when you celebrate. Those emotions and that nervous system that you have that you just triggered, like, it gets to celebrate that feeling. So when that feeling shows up again, you know you can navigate it. And that feeling shows up in different environments all the time. Stepping on stage, closing a deal, having a tough conversation with your spouse. Like, you need to do these things and you need to celebrate them so you train your nervous system to do them again.
There's a couple of really key things there, because first you talked about, like, right, when you were frozen up, you started to create stories that became bigger than the obstacle itself. And it's just interesting just to know, observe, and just be aware. And this step on its own can help be part of the solve, is to be aware that when you're not, when you're not in action, when you're not in motion, when you're not flowing with life, your brain tends to, and if you have any idea why, I'd love to talk about it, but the brain tends to create, like, boogeymen. It creates stories. It's really interesting how and I'm sure there's some kind of defense mechanism from way back with, like, I don't know, bears or something that would eat people in the jungle or whatever it was, but there's something about the mind that if you get in there too far, it actually has a freezing mechanism to stop you instead of to keep you in motion. You said it without saying it. You said the next time you feel that feeling, that emotion, then you can work through it. Well, that's out of the mind and into the heart. That's into your body. And when you live in that space, then you can't, it's a much stronger place to move from than from the mind.
Yes.
But that's so difficult to navigate. And go ahead. You were
Well, like,
saying
I
something.
think when we get stuck, we need movement. And so then our brain grabs a story and starts running with it because it needs movement. And instead of letting your brain run, you need your body to run.
Yeah.
And so, like, if you can take that out of your head and move it into your body, because the reality, like, so here's something I learned from my accident. When I had my car accident,
This was a big accident, right? Give us a quick
huge
background
accident.
on
My
it.
car looked like a tin can. I did front rolled full, like, rolled over 3 times, end over end, and then did like 10 side rolls and ended up upside down in the median. And so, like, I'm, like, hanging from the car, and, like, then somebody peels back the windshield and it's like, "Are you okay?" And I look at him and I'm like, I must not be, because his facial expression is telling me, like, what I'm afraid to see. Like, I was so afraid of looking at my body. Like, I didn't want to look at it. It was so hot. I didn't know what happened. I'm like, I'm going to see him cut in half, and then I'm, like, going to be cashed out. So instead of looking at my body, I closed my eyes and I wiggled my fingers and toes. I was like, oh my God, I can feel my fingers and toes. I can feel my fingers and toes. Like, I'm okay. Like, oh my God. And so, like, that moment made me realize, like, when I got scared on the mountain, I would close my eyes and I would feel my fingers and toes. I'm like, I can feel my fingers and toes. Everything else is a story, which can be recreated. And it would allow me to reset and be like, okay, what do I need this story to be to get across or to do the next thing? Because that time out of realizing your brain's running, not your body, and connecting to your body, and your body's like, yeah, I'm here. What we're doing allows you to restart.
That is so powerful. That is awesome. If I can feel my fingers and toes, I'm gonna borrow that one. See if it does something for
It's
me
yours.
next time I'm in a spot.
Yeah.
That's so good. That is really, really good. Yeah, it's like the mind. It doesn't like gaps in its understanding,
Right.
right? Like the mind, you're on one side of the crevasse and you don't know exactly what's going to be in front of you, right? And so the mind really doesn't like that. Doesn't like to not know.
Right.
And so it'll just create a story.
Yeah.
It'll fill in the gaps. And we do this all the time. We do this with people. We do this with when someone gives us a look, like, whoa, what was that look? Right? Like, And your mind will just fill in every possible gap. And it's often way off.
Oh my gosh, it's so
Instinct,
off.
people,
Yes.
look, I mean, I just did it without, I just did it by instinct, right? I said instinct and I pointed to my chest. Instinct, gut feel, like the reason that, people rightfully so take pride in being connected to that and understanding that feeling, that's where there's just far more truth than in what the mind will create. The mind is very tricky. It will mislead, it will misguide. So, okay, I want you to share with people what's ahead. What's ahead for Jenn Drummond? You've completed your 7 summits on the second highest peak on every continent. I believe you're about to complete the actual highest peak on every continent. You have a Denali climb coming up, which I was really excited for about 2 seconds when you said, "Why don't you join me?" Gosh, I'd love to.
Please, let's do
So
it.
for I have a torn
Oh, I
tendon
hear
that prevents
hey,
me from,
got
I'm
it.
not even close to train. But anyway, I'm super excited for you. That'll be amazing. But what's next?
Yeah.
And guys, like I could just tell you, get connected with her, find her on Instagram, follow what she's doing. Because if this is spoken to you and there's things here that you find useful for your life, insights, she's dropping them there all the time. But also there's what's ahead for you that they also might want to keep connected based on what you might be
Yeah.
bringing forward.
Yeah. So I am definitely talking on stages right now and sharing this story and giving parallels to building businesses or coming back from setbacks and things like that. Love doing that. And then like putting together some different options where we can get people out in the environment and experience some of these feels. So when they show up in other environments, they know how to navigate them.
So if that's you, adventure travel experience, definitely, just like I said, make sure you give her a follow, track what she's doing. Well, I don't know what your next step is, Jenn. I just know it's not going to be boring. That I
Yeah.
know.
There we go.
That I
Fair
know.
enough.
Your kids won't let you.
No.
So
Well,
thank you.
let me give your audience one thing.
Please.
So you know what? Life gets hard and overwhelming at times, and for me, visuals always bring me back to reality. So I knew we'd be talking about climbing a little bit today. I have a video,
Mm.
the Milky Way galaxy going over Everest Base Camp. And whenever life gets hard, it's like a time lapse that we took while we were there. I watch that video and just get out of my story and remind myself, like, we're on this planet that has like this, like, come on, like, this is amazing. Stop making it hard. So if you want that video for yourself, text the word Everest to the number 33777. So Everest 33777. You'll get that video. You'll get in our email system and you'll get updates and all these fun things that are going on.
So that's 33777
Yeah.
and the word Everest gone. I'm in too.
I love
John,
it.
thank you for joining us. This is Masters of Business. You're awesome. We'll have to keep track of where you're going, maybe have you on in the future. And I can't wait to just continue the conversation. We'll see you
Thank you.
soon.
Yes.